Welcome to the What to Play podcast. We are your hosts, Jacob and Lucas. In this episode of the What to Play podcast is powered by StreamYard. We thank StreamYard for the fourth episode of the What to Play podcast. Lucas, how are you doing on this Christmas weekend?
Tired. I'm exhausted. What about you?
Oh, I'm doing good. I got my electrolytes and we're ready to go. So let's first begin with the recap of Week 15. The Lions beat the Broncos on Saturday, 42-17. And again, it's kind of weird. We said the Broncos were one game away from being tied with the Chiefs, but then they play the Lions. They look terrible, and then we're all saying the Lions defense is back. I'm like, yeah, they're back, I guess, to a team that can't score more than 20, 24 points a game.
Right.
Their defense is amazing somehow, but their offense is a disaster. I don't know if you saw Sean Payton on Twitter blow up at Russell
I did
Wilson.
see that. Yeah.
It was just like, I get it. It hasn't worked greatly, at least in the beginning of the year. But I understand it's emotional, but at the same time, it's like, let's be honest, there's not much you can do with this offense at the moment. I mean, you chuck it up to Courtland Sutton, sure, but you got to have other guys catch passes too.
Yep.
I like Sean Laporta, the tight end for the Lions. I like St. Brown. I think he's an excellent player. I don't care for the Lions defense.
I'm not really on the train for them. Like once they make the playoffs, I don't feel like they're a team that'll make a lot of noise.
Well, I just keep looking at him like, oh yeah, I like Dan Campbell. I like him a lot. But we bite kneecaps and stuff. I like that. Don't get me wrong, I like that a lot. But at the same time, it's like, when are you actually going to do it at some point? I want you, they got to face Minnesota twice in the next 3 weeks. See what happens. But even that, I'm not like, oh, if they win, who cares really? So let's move on to the Browns beating the Bears, 20-17. With the Bears, I don't like the Bears offense. I like Justin Fields. I like what they have, but I don't like their offense. They're boring. And it's like, would you let Justin throw the ball down the field, please? Just let him throw it down the field. These 10-yard routes are annoying. You have all these weapons. You got DJ Moore. You got Kmet. You got Mooney. You have these guys, and you have a decent run game. Throw it downfield.
Right.
Like, I understand he's fumbling and he's turning the ball over. You gotta give him a shot at some point. I just don't like how they play. Defensively, I think they're good. Like, if it was an offensive issue, I would have said, okay, it's an offensive issue. But if it's offense that is the issue, like Montez Sweat has been great since you got it. The secondary has been balling. At what point do you go and say, well, there's got to be a change at some juncture? Because is Justin the guy? I don't know. Are we trading for a quarterback? I don't know. Are we bringing someone in as a quarterback? I don't know. This offense, I don't think can win with anybody, not just Justin Fields. They can't win with anybody.
Yeah, they definitely have a lot more issues than just the quarterback position.
I want to see, like, the offensive line is not particularly good, but they've been better. They've been better. So I guess that's the positive. I just want to see how they form in the last 3 games. I really think, like, is Eberflus out the door? I'm not sure. I would say yes. But
Yeah.
the defense, how the defense has looked the last several weeks, I'm more concerned. I don't think he's back. At some point, you got to figure out something with this offense. Anyway, moving on. Oh, and then talk about the Browns. Joe Flacco threw 3 interceptions. Yet they find a way to win. I like Jim Schwartz and what he does. This guy, he brings the pressure. Every week he brings the pressure. You have Myles Garrett, you have Zadarius Smith attack the quarterback. What have they done? The best in the league. Attack the quarterback. I said this during the game. I said the two guys that are probably the most held guys outside of TJ Watt, of course, is Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett. They're held every play because they're that good. And every year, but for the last year, Micah Parsons is. I have not gotten a holding penalty called on the offensive lineman I've been on in 31 quarters. For Myles Garrett, that's got to be closer to 45 quarters that he hasn't gotten a holding penalty.
Yeah.
This guy gets held every play. At some point, you got to call something. I understand they're good, but at some point, you're affecting the game if you're not going to call something on them. But that defense, they needed Joe Flacco to just be a bus driver. Don't need to be great. Be okay, and we'll be all set. It's what
I mean, they won. That's all that matters. But 3 interceptions isn't really what you're looking for.
And I understand that. And the fact that Fields still has a chance to win the game at the end, throws a Hail Mary, the ball gets kicked and almost caught, and then kicked again and intercepted. You can't blame everybody, but the offense, your defense scores 14 points and you lose 20-17. That can't happen. I don't care how good you are. That cannot happen.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to the Bills beating the Cowboys 31-10. There is no excuse for the Cowboys, but let's not say Josh Allen had an unbelievable game. He didn't. He did not. He didn't do much of anything. He's 7 of 15 for under 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, but under 100 yards. It was James Cook's show. Let's go. Let's be honest. They just ran it all over the place. And I mean, you can say, well, they attacked the middle of the defense. How many times did James Cook bounce out a run?
Yeah.
It happened all the time. He would just bounce out, and there was nothing the Cowboys could do. The Cowboys are structured as a passing defense, not a rushing defense. They got to fix that if you want to go against teams like San Francisco and have a chance to win. But I don't think you'll play that bad again. You were just terrible.
It's just one of those things where the Cowboys are just not good on the road.
Exactly.
That needs to be fixed.
The Cowboys, all their 4 losses are on the road. They're 3-4 on the road this year. They've won 15 straight home games that they can't win on the road. And I think they played so conservatively because they were so they were concerned about the rain.
Let's keep going. Give me one moment. I'm still listening.
Yeah. They were concerned about the rain. They were concerned about how the field would look. How the defense was going to be, how the offense going to be in that kind of stadium, and how they would react. So I think there was issues. But everyone's like, I don't know if we'll talk about this a little later on about the media. And I use the term double standard because that's really what it is. But I need to see a little more from at least the Cowboys side of more fight at some point. And hang on, we will get Lucas back in a second. Okay, and he's back. I can't hear you. Can you hear me, Luke? I can't hear you. Sorry about that. Lucas is having mic trouble. But back to what I was saying, like I want to see this Cowboys team do better on the road. Their struggles are massive on the road. They win by 20 points at home every week, but they don't play every week at home. So you must find some resemblance of an offense at some point on the road because they're. Hold on a second. Hello. Sorry about that. But the Cowboys offense must find some resemblance on the road. They're just not good enough on the road. You can't be down double digits on the road and win by double digits at home. That can't happen every week. You're just not going to be good enough. And Lucas said it last week that we are not good enough on the road. Dallas needs to have a home playoff game. They need home field.
Can you hear me now?
Can you get it? I doubt it. But let's see what
Jacob?
happens. Yeah.
You can hear me now.
Yeah, I can hear you, but your picture's out. Okay. I was just saying, like what you reiterated last week, which was the Cowboys need home field. That's
Which
a
isn't gonna
desperate
happen.
need. Like San Francisco, if they beat Baltimore, it's done. But you can still win your division, so you can still get one, maybe two at home.
But when it matters most, like in the divisional, it's gonna be hard.
And we will get into that. But I just think Dallas needs to find some offense on the road at some point. You can't be this bad.
And
You're
Dak
this
has
good
done
at
it
home.
too.
And Dak's been really good. Besides the game against Buffalo, he was been really good. He's not the issue. Like there's he threw an interception, but you were already late in the game. You were losing anyway. He's trying to force the ball downfield. You're down at that point 20. I mean, at what point is it a problem?
Yeah.
I just don't, and I no one will say this. It looked like the defense that the Cowboys gave up at the end of the first half and just never got it back. That's what it looked like to me. And props to Buffalo. You ran the ball. You ran it 49 times. You dominated the ground game, 200 yards plus. But a great game by James Cook. Like that's all I can say. And their defense made great plays when they had to.
Jacob, give me time out for a second.
Yeah.
I'm echoing so bad on your end. I switched my mic. But I don't know.
Okay. So as Lucas fixes his mic issues, I will continue to talk about the lack of offense in the Cowboys game between the Cowboys and Bills. It looked like they took one shot to Brandon Cooks. They have it, they just don't hit it, and then they just stopped. They didn't try and push it, and that's unfortunate. But at the same time, if you're the Cowboys, you must find an offense on the road. Let's run. We can't. The Cowboys can't do that. They're just not built that way. So don't try and run the ball to set up the pass. Do what you did and what you have done since the loss to San Francisco. Motion, let the pass set up the run, help your offensive line. You've done a great job. Dak looked impressive. The probably last 2 weeks he hasn't looked the best, but at the same time he's looked like the best he has in his career. Is he MVP? I don't know. I know that fluctuates every week, but I can tell you that if you're on offense and you're with the Cowboys, you must find something on the road because eventually you're playing San Francisco. They're good. They're a good football team, and more than likely you're playing them on the road. Must find an offense at some point on the road. And for Buffalo, they are playing out of their minds right now. They are fighting to get this last roster spot in the playoffs. And they're right there. They are. They needed a couple things to go away. Cincinnati, the way they've played the last couple weeks with Jake Browning. The Colts continue to find ways to win. And the Steelers, whether or not they play ugly football or whatever you consider it, they do enough to get in. But I'm concerned if I'm the Bills. Is it just too late? Is it just too late? Because you still got to face the Patriots once, the Dolphins once, and if I remember correctly, I think they face Cincinnati. But let me make sure for 100% sure. But either way, I think it's just too. You got to win out and hope Miami just finds a way to lose out. You're still muted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we pause the podcast for a second? I think I know what it is.
All right. Well, I can't really pause. Sorry about that. Lucas had to leave. So, back to what we were talking about. The Bills, I want to say they had a good. It just might have been too late. The team is. It's just too late for them. I think at this moment. Hang on. I gotta fix something in the settings. Okay. Check. But yeah, I think the Bills just it happened too late for them at this moment. They still have his Patriots. They still have the Dolphins. Maybe it's a little too late. We have to make sure, but they can still fight for that fifth and that sixth and seventh playoff spot. So anything can happen in the NFL. There's still 3 weeks left to go. And moving on to the Seahawks beating the Eagles 20-17 in a game. I didn't mind the game itself. If I'm the Eagles, I'm a little disappointed. The style that we want to play. First of all, you threw 2 interceptions to Julian Love. Yes, I understand he got tugged, that Quez Watkins got tugged, but just throwing the deep ball to your fourth best receiver, is that really better than, say, Devontae Smith? No. And on the second one, I don't understand why you're taking a deep shot. It's first down, 2 timeouts to go. You have plenty of time, and yet you decide to take a deep shot. Made no sense. So we have a question of are the Eagles a little broken? No. They're just making a lot of mistakes. And we'll talk about the Eagles in a little bit. But the Seahawks, Drew Lock, didn't know he was starting to about an hour before. Goes out there, not a whole lot in the first 3 quarters, but then that final drive, 92 yards, we gotta go down the field. We need a touchdown. Here goes Drew Lock. Here we go. DK. We go right down the field. 3rd and 10, 30-yard run to DK. 3rd and 10 again. Throw it, touchdown to Jackson Smith and Jigba. That's what you did. It was great. It concerns me a little bit if the Eagles, you struggle against the bottom 4 defense. That concerns me. Because you have A.J. Brown, you have Devontae Smith, you have Dallas Goedert, you have Jalen Hurts, and a great offensive line. You should not be struggling against the Seattle team. Especially if you're really trying to get back into this. You lost 3 games in a row now. You lost San Francisco, you lost to Dallas, you lost to Seattle. And you're keeping Dallas in this thing, even though Dallas has not played well. That can't happen either. So Seattle wins 20-17. And again, I still don't understand why they took the deep shot. You only need a field goal. It just never made sense to me. All right, the news portion of this. The penalty call on Jason Kelce when on the false start that he was moving the ball. They tried to do the brotherly shove play, and they need a first down. I think they're on the 3-yard line, on the 3-yard line, and you see him, 3.5-yard line. You see him move the ball from. Okay, you need an entire yard to now is. Okay, you need 3 inches because he moved the ball forward, and they said no, you can't do that. You must. It's a false start, move back. And Jason Kelce said, you know what? They've told me not to do that, and I did. And that's fair for him to say that. It was a shocker, but they're calling more of those penalties. If you've been told, hey, don't do that, and it's already like on the brotherly shove play, you're already almost over the defensive lineman anyway. Because in any other circumstance, your backside's kind of flat or down. Here, you're kind of up. So you're already getting all the leverage you need anyway. You just got to go forward. And that's what happened. Well, in this play, doesn't go forward. It's a mistake. It happens. But at least he owns up to it. It did not affect the game. It really didn't. It did not affect the game from a perspective, I would think. That's me. Moving on. Drew Lock saved the Seahawks in a game where he had 116 passing yards before that final drive, and they go right down the field. DK Metcalf was not really involved. Did what they had to do, and so you had a good ground game by Kenneth Walker. You played well, did what you had to do. Good job by the Seahawks, and way to keep your playoff hopes alive. The NFL. This is moving on. The NFL is going to do an international game, maybe by the start of next year in Sao Paulo, Brazil. This will be the first time a game will be done in Brazil. Now, the way these things work are there are media markets, and each team is given a certain market. And the market for Brazil is the Miami Dolphins. That's their market. So meaning that the Dolphins would have to play in Brazil probably next year. Who will they face? I don't know. It doesn't make sense for anyone unless you could do Kansas City again, I guess, but you did that one in Frankfurt. Not really. Buffalo? Are they really going to want to give up a game against Buffalo as a home game? Probably not. We could see what happens. But an NFL game in Sao Paulo, Brazil next year, I'm very excited. I enjoy the fact they try to expand the game of football into these international markets. Next up, what's wrong with the Eagles, and I wish I would have been able to ask Lucas this question, but I'll say this. I think what's wrong with the Eagles is they've run into bad habits where they used to be able to they were very creative with the plays last year, and they're not as creative because they lost their coordinators. But they also had AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, so they could take these shots whenever they wanted, take these deep shots, and they said, "Okay, we can do it." They haven't panned out very well. Some drop passes, some overthrows, haven't been that good, and you can tell that Jalen Hurts does not look like he was sick on Monday. They didn't know if he was going to play. He ended up playing, but he kind of looked at near the end like he was just out of it completely. And he looked tired, obviously, because you're sick. But he's also been banged up with a knee, a shoulder, and an ankle. These are all things that are affecting him. But again, like I said, that's not an excuse. If you got to work around that as much as you can. They haven't done that. So I think that's an issue. I think their secondary is a problem. Darius Slay's out for a couple weeks, get orthoscopic surgery. He's not going to play. You saw James Bradbury get attacked. That can't happen to you. Your best corner can't be beaten by their best receiver. That cannot happen. That's why you put your best guy on them. That's what you do. That cannot happen to you. Period. That your best guy can't be beat. What I mean by being beat, he got beat on every catch on the last drive. That is not supposed to happen at all. D came in at a circus catch on his hip. Can't affect that. But the deep ball on third down, that can't happen either. The 2 third downs, the 3rd and 10 that go 30 yards, and then the 3rd and 10 that they go for a touchdown to Smith and Jigba. That can't happen either. There's a lack of offense to this team if you're the Eagles, but there's also defensive struggles, which has been their secondary, and the fact they don't get pressure. They led the league in sacks last year. They had 70, I think 70, 75. They can't get pressure on the quarterback. Besides Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat, they can't get pressure. That's a problem. It's a problem. So that's the issues I think with the Eagles. It's not just their secondary. They can't get pressure. And those things have to work hand in hand. And running into bad habits on their offense and not as creative because both of their coordinators are gone. That happens, but you have to be able to deal with it. Next up, Patriots corner J.C. Jackson placed on the football non-injury list. I don't know what's going on with J.C. Jackson at this point. He didn't play in the game in Frankfurt, didn't play last week because of the same thing. Now he's placed on the NFI list. That can't happen. And I understand you're frustrated about the game, but at some point, it's just not working. Now you're placed on the NFI list, probably get released by the end of the year. That's what's going to happen. Next up, CJ Stroud. He's still in concussion protocol, set to miss the game against the Browns. Texans really need that game. We hope CJ Stroud can get out of concussion protocol, will be healthy. I mean, is it Case Keenum? Is it Davis Mills? I don't know against this Brown defense. But it doesn't look like to be CJ Stroud for a second consecutive week. Next up, Steelers offense struggles / effort. The reason I put / effort is because How many plays did we see where the Steelers wide receivers just don't block at all? It was one with Devontae. There was one with George Pickens, Devontae Johnson, same thing. And it's like, then there was another one with Pickens in the game against the Colts this past week. He pretends like he's engaged with the guy and gets out of the way. He's like, "Well, I didn't want to Tank Dell injury." But that's all now everyone's talking about is that you are afraid of injuries. That you're not willing to help out your teammate because you're worried about your self-worth. And a lot of Pittsburgh people the last couple of weeks have said the same thing. We need this to be the team. Ben Roethlisberger said the Steelers' way is going away. Bill Cowher says that there's no confidence in really playing that style. And the only way you can do that style is if you are willing to go old school. And it's not about the yards, it's about the attempts. Attack, 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 attack. I get it. I get it. I don't understand it in terms of what George Pickens is doing. Is he probably on his way out? I don't know. I don't know. See what happens. Next up, name your MVP. Name your MVP. The MVP, I think, in the league is Christian McCaffrey. I think it is. Because I think the way he plays so well. And they need him for everything. Passing, rushing, he's a good blocker. He does this, he's very he's not like demanding the ball, but they're giving him the ball. And the one thing he's had that was the issue in Carolina was the attack in terms of his health. He was not really ever healthy. He's remained healthy. This offensive line helped him remain healthy. And it's not just on him. There's Deebo Samuel. There's Brandon Ayuk. There's George Kittle. There's Juan Jennings. There's guys that can get the ball to besides me. And then there's Elijah Mitchell, who's a good replacement back. Works. All right, moving on to the final news before we head into the preview, which is Micah Parsons this is the media's narrative, and I'm gonna on next week's show we'll talk to Lucas about this as well. The media calls Micah Parsons quote unquote sensitive. Okay, here we go. Sensitive is the term they used. That's what the media says. I call it media's double standard against the Cowboys. Now, let me explain why. We can start with coaches. Since Mike McCarthy got to the Dallas Cowboys, everything, if they lose, it's on him. But anytime they win, it's on the players, it's on Dan Quinn, Al Harris, it's all these guys. But it's never, ever, great job. Great job, Mike. He did a great job. They played well. That's never been the issue. That's never been the thing. They don't give Mike McCarthy credit. They give him they lost. It's Mike McCarthy's fault. They won, but it's not because of McCarthy. Oh, there's timing issues. There's this, there's that. Every coach has them. It's just the way it is. You don't think Bill Belichick does? Of course he does. We saw it with Doug Peterson last week. We saw it. Doug Peterson, they go down the field. They have a chance to go score a touchdown. If they spike the ball, maybe get one, possibly two shots at the end zone, and then have a time to kick a field goal. And instead, they decide to not spike it. They throw a pass to a wide receiver who's 2 yards downfield, doesn't get out of bounds, doesn't stop the clock, and goes to the end of half in a game that was really close. It was 10-3 at that time. That's Doug Peterson. That's on Doug. That's on him. It's the same thing here. Same thing. But we're not blaming Doug Peterson for the losses. We're blaming Mike McCarthy for the Cowboys' losses. But we should be blaming these other coaches for these losses too. That's fair. Now, what do I mean by if Mike is at fault? Well, of course Mike's at fault if they don't win. If they don't win, the coach should get the blame too, but he should also get the success. So that's one side of it. The other side is anytime Dak Prescott does something well, it's always overlooked. Last year, Dak threw a lot of interceptions. The interceptions were an issue. We all knew that. Interceptions are an issue. We can't afford to throw these interceptions. So what's happening? It's unfortunate. He goes and says, okay, I can't throw 10 interceptions this year. He hasn't. But I can't throw 10 interceptions this year. He hasn't. Because everyone in the media was destroying him for it. Now, a year later, Patrick Mahomes is up in interceptions. Josh Allen's up in interceptions. Jalen Hurts is up in interceptions. All these media favorite quarterbacks are up in interceptions. And guess what? Whispers. Nothing. Or if you're from a non-city, crickets. There are crickets chirping. There is nothing. And the media always says, well, it's a fake stat. But when Dak does it, oh my gosh, it's in his DNA. It's this, it's that. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. But it annoys people. As Cowboys fans and players, it annoys them. Because the guy never gets credit. So, my question when the media says, well, Micah Parsons sensitive. Micah Parsons was on his podcast this past week after the loss of the Bills. Said, look, we know we didn't play well. We didn't do all the great things right and all that stuff. But can the media, for once, make a decision where it's based on, okay, our quarterback didn't do well, but their quarterback didn't do well, and yet we're blaming that quarterback for not doing well? Can we at least say, well, we're blaming my quarterback for not doing well, but we're not blaming him for not playing well? There's a double standard. And there is. There's an absolute double standard. The media doesn't want to see it that way. So people say, block it out, don't watch. It's not easy to not watch. It's not easy to block it out when it's on every sports show. I said this on my YouTube channel this past week. I said, Dave Hellman, who worked for the Cowboys for about 20 years, now works on his own, and he goes on the show, Speak. And this past week was asked about the Cowboys, if there was a double standard. And he said, yes, people root for the Cowboys to lose. We'd all root for a team to lose against our favorite team. We would all do that. But it's not in the media's decision to say we should root for them instead. It's not their responsibility. Hellman also stated that he doesn't think Joy Taylor is a Cowboys hater, but she's doing that to line her pockets, basically, is what he said. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong at all. And I think that sent everyone else in a tailspin. And we'll see if he's brought back. Because what he said in a minute and a half was as true as if you would have created a 25-minute conversation. It's just true. Now again, we'll get Lucas's take on this next week. And previews for week 16 are Browns versus Texans +2. The Lions versus Vikings +3 for the Vikings. Cowboys versus Dolphins is -1.5. I've seen 1.5. We're going to stick with 1.5. Ravens versus 49ers. Niners are favored by 5.5. Let's start with Browns versus Texans. +2 for the Texans, which basically means it's -2 for the Browns. I'm taking the Browns just because I don't think any of the backup quarterbacks could win for the Texans. They won last week, but I don't think it's going to happen. For the Lions versus Vikings, +3 for the Vikings. Vikings need to get into the playoffs. Justin Jefferson should be back for this game. We'll see. C.J. Gardner-Johnson might also be back for this game. We'll see. But I'm taking the Vikings to win this. Vikings win. Actually, I should say this. Browns beat the Texans 24-14. Vikings beat the Lions 28-20. Next up is Christmas Eve, the 4:00 game. Is Cowboys on the road against the Dolphins. 1.5 for the Dolphins. So this is a game that's going to be interesting. Both these teams are terrible against good opponents. The Cowboys are terrible on the road, in bad weather, and on grass. So it's the whole kablamo. Having said that, I take the Cowboys in this one just because the Cowboys are 11-1 since Mike McCarthy got to the Cowboys. Since 2021, after a loss, he's 11-1. I think the Cowboys win this game. They make a statement and saying, "Okay, let's go." Cowboys win. Cowboys could also win the division without winning this game, by the way. It's a long shot, but they could. Cowboys win 31-20. And finally, Ravens versus 49ers. Niners favored by 5.5. Probably wouldn't be surprised if this is a Super Bowl preview. Wouldn't be surprised if this is the best game of the year. Undoubtedly, I think it is. I have the Ravens in this game because I think the Ravens, that's the toughest opponent, the last toughest opponent the Niners face. And because otherwise, if the Niners win, they lock up the 1 seed. So I have the Ravens winning. Score is 28-24. And this is the end of the podcast. We're sorry that Lucas had to leave early. And we are happy that this episode of the Webplay Podcast was powered by StreamYard. Thank you very much. And we will see you guys next time. Peace.